Time now to find out what's happening in the business world. Xolani Mbanjwa, our business editor, joins us now. Xolani, good afternoon to you. Aspen Pharmacare, they're selling 6 prescription drugs to the Swiss group, what's it called, Acino, for 1.8 billion rand?
Yes, this is a surprise move since they've been doing so well, Aspen Pharmacare, being the only manufacturer of a vaccine here on the African continent, and they want to bolster that. So this sale is a strategic one that they've made to Acino, and the transaction includes these particular drugs, Trastan, Alcocet, Zuvamor, and they are making some big moves, Aspen Pharmacare. In their Gqeberha, plant, they are soon going to make a huge announcement on Monday around one of the world's biggest manufacturing plants. So it's something that is quite interesting. This 1.8 billion rand deal with the Swiss group, Acino, and it's something that the parties have signed a manufacturing and a supply agreement where Aspen will supply manufactured product to Acino for a period of 7 years. Something that Petri Redeling-Hayes at Herenia Capital Advisors sees in a good light. This has been quite well welcomed, from the market point of view.
They're basically getting a consideration of around 1.8 billion rand, or they're being paid 1.8 billion rand for the 6 medical brands or pharmaceutical brands that they have now sold. They also have a 7-year contract to continue manufacturing these products for the new purchaser, for the new owner of the product. The deal is expected to conclude only at the end of the year, at the end of December, or by 31 December. So basically what's going to be happening is they're selling the 6 brands, as well as all the current stock levels that they're carrying. So excluding the stock, they're getting a ticket price of about 1.8 billion rand for the brands themselves. And then obviously all the stock goes as well at cost price. And then for the next 7 years, they continue to manufacture this as well. So they don't necessarily, they retain the ability to remain profitable on the stuff, but they are now only the manufacturer, not necessarily the owner of and retailer of, these particular medical, items.
And the Rebosis Property Fund, a broader government tenanted office portfolio, huh? Offices that rents to government, it's selling those.
Yes, it's selling those. You don't want to sell those because governments will not go away. They are in serious trouble. For a couple of years, Stephen, Rebosis has been in serious trouble when it comes to its debt. Debt has actually wiped out 98% of its market value since 2015. Their debt has been spiraling out of control, and they've been promising some, respite to shareholders to say we are working on a deal. The deal that they've signed today, it sees them selling 32 properties to this outfit called Ulricraft. This is a special purpose vehicle that is owned by Vunani Capital Partners. This is a deal that's worth 6.3 billion rands, but obviously the debt, is going to pay down the debt, which is currently standing at 9.4 billion rands. And it just shows you that a company like this that has been growing so well over the years, black owned and black, it was established by Sisa Ngebulana, and it did very, very well. Shopping malls, complexes here and there, government office parks, retail parks. But the debt, it just became too big for them, which is why their market value was wiped out. You don't want to sell those, definitely. You don't want to sell the government, offices that you are renting out to government. But this is the deal that everybody has been waiting for, and the group's loan to value is expected to reduce by approximately 42%, which is very good for their debt book. But Chantal Marx, will say the same thing, that you don't want to sell this, from FNB Wealth and Investments. You don't want to sell that part. It just was a rescue plan that they desperately needed.
It's something that they've been talking about for a while, but when you cast your mind back to what Rebosis was kind of pitching when it first listed on the JSE many moons ago, was that they were this office kind of giant, and specifically office space aimed at government, which is very steady. Gives you decent income, it gives you decent yield, but I mean, it's not exciting as in the retail space, which is an area that they ended up expanding in eventually. That combined with the impact of COVID-19 had a massive a negative impact on Rebosis. Its loan to value ratio, its debt was exceptionally high, and they've opted to sell the office portfolio and to focus on retail now. That office sale is quite substantial, and it's going to go a long way for them to reduce their debt and get to a more sustainable footpath going forward.
Xolani, I mean, this gets to the heart of one of the biggest questions around business and economies coming out of COVID-19, and coming out of COVID-19 only if you've had your vaccination. And the reason that this is important is because are people going to continue working from home? Are people actually going to go back into offices? Look at coffee shops in some of the richer areas. They've left the office areas and they're going to residential areas because that's where the people, that's where their clients live. They used to be where they work. Now they're where they live.
We might sit here and sound like, protagonists for vaccination. We're not. We're not sitting here telling people go out and vaccinate. We can do that in our private capacities. But what we are saying is property companies like Rebosis are going to have a huge problem going forward if a majority of the country is not, vaccinated, because we're going to continue managing this, pandemic through lockdowns while the rest of the world has moved on, and many of the companies are still going to be reluctant to actually bring back staff to the office, and many of them are cancelling their leases as well. So who actually feels it in the pockets? It's your investors, you and I, whose hedge fund managers are invested in these property real estate investment trusts. So it's a really tricky thing that the recalcitrance or the hesitancy of people, I should say, to vaccinate has some serious ripple effects for property companies like this and many, many other sectors in the country. And we've just seen a little bit of the ramifications of this. If the rate of vaccination does not improve, we are going to seriously see some, negative ramifications this time next year.
Because, I mean, the knock-on effects go on and on and on. So let's just stay in property for a second. Residential property values for the middle classes are often about where people work. So if you're close to Sandton or close to the Cape Town CBD, I mean, there's a reason why a loft in the Cape Town CBD costs more than you and I earn together in a decade, right? So there's a reason why that happens. Now, if people aren't going to work in an office, it doesn't matter where you are. So that property of that loft suddenly drops dramatically, but property somewhere else suddenly starts to increase in value. Never mind all of that. The people who make the coffee, the people in the restaurants, the chef in the restaurant, the sous chef in the restaurant, the waiting staff in the restaurant where people used to work, now don't have a job. So, I mean, this is like the biggest shake-up of an economy in 100 years.
Yes, and if for those who are deciding to stand on the sidelines and not vaccinate and are running small businesses, they will feel it in a couple of years' time when they wonder, why did my business fail? It's because, well, there's nobody to service because people have either moved off to far-flung areas, away from the cities. There's no reasons to stay closer to work if you're not going to the office every day. Yeah. So the ripple effects are huge, and we haven't even seen, the huge part of it, and it's going to make our economic recovery that much harder.
The World Health Organization, I mean, it's a related point. They're warning about the costs of medicines related to COVID.
Yes, so I've been following what's been happening with the Competition Commission. They had a couple of guests talking about economic recovery plan and the role of competition policy to make the playing field level. It was a two-day conference, and it was something quite interesting to hear the World Health Organization, Dr. Odari, talking about, we know the problems in South Africa about price gouging. Remember, the Competition Commission and Tribunal has tried people and fined people for excessive price gouging, excessive pricing that goes up to 200%, price increases for things like gloves, masks, and they are warning that we are not alone as South Africa, but they are warning that this will lead to the cost of these medical supplies, creeping up and rising over the next couple of years if we don't get a lead on it. And this is what the World Health Organization had to say earlier on. Judge Dennis Davis was part of this group. Fatima Hassan at the Health Justice Initiative was part of this group, talking about how important it is to put a lid on those who might be using this period to make a quick buck.
We've seen excessive pricing of products going from protective equipment, face masks, hand sanitizers, serological tests, and of course, many other items required now for the administration of vaccines, including syringes and needles. Active and enforcement of anti-price gouging laws has been difficult to implement. And we look towards the Commission in South Africa and the processes that you are discussing at the moment to see how that works. In the past, again, as Judge, you have indicated there have been interesting cases coming through your judicial system, and I've informed the world on how to deal with some of these complex matters. But we see that the underlying issues on access, affordability of medical products that we're seeing now are going to be with us as they've been going forward. We are unfortunately going to be seeing unaffordable high prices for medicines and products going forward for both households where they're out-of-pocket expenses, but also for health care systems.
It's an amazing story, this. I mean, the idea of price gouging during a pandemic. I mean, I know I've used this phrase today, but who does that?
So people you will call entrepreneurs, they will, the greed is out there no matter what. To make a quick buck, it's always been said, Stephen, and you know this, a crisis presents opportunity, and for some, it's an opportunity to actually, make a quick buck off unsuspecting people.
Coming soon to an SIU report. There you, Xolani Mbanjwa. Thanks very much indeed, our business editor.